So when women were subsumed into the Black Panther Party, they faced sexual harassment and different sorts of struggles. Okay, so the main point of this video is that because of women being desired members in the Black Panther Party, and because of the hardships they went through, you know, that were gender specific, women were given a chance to demand some changes in the Black Panther Party, which would ultimately lead it further down the path of being wrong as compared to Karinga's US organization. So Karinga had a theory, which is pretty much very factual, and I'll get into that in a moment, that women complement men and they make, the imperfect perfect, and their role is key in the family structure. And he also was more for capitalism than for communism. Okay? So Karinga had a superior view to the Black Panther Party, and I have a superior view to both of them. I'll get into that in a moment. His view, was a strong family structure. And I go as far as to say that when John Huggins and Bunchy Carter were shot, that they were in the wrong. The Panthers were in the wrong. And, before I didn't view it this way, I thought of it as a jealous organization that, was fighting with the Panthers over power of the community. But they had serious issues, and the US organization was more in the right than the Panthers. And I don't mean to take away from, what the Panthers have contributed to history and, black people, whatever. But the fact is they're wrong. Okay? So when they took this feminist, womanist point of view, Elaine Brown, Angela Davis, and so on and so forth, they were actually very much in the wrong. Okay? If you look at the videos I've uploaded before this, I thoroughly explored this idea. Women are very selfish. They're being taught to be selfish and to pursue their own desires and quote-unquote happiness, and to sacrifice the family unit and society. Women can more than contribute by raising a child a certain way. Therefore, she's influencing the future decision makers of the world. Women are together are influencing the future decision makers of the world. It's kind of hard for me to speak because they're covertly drugging me, and it's really messing up my speech patterns. And since they caught wind of that, they pretty much turned it up, But anyway, so when these women were facing this harassment and sometimes rape and things of this nature, and men using their position, they demanded, well, we want full equality, as we want full membership. The Black Panther Party actually started off more, along the lines of Karinga's view, but because of their desire to compromise, and that is the major downfall of the Black Panther Party. Compromise. They compromised with gays, they compromised with other races, they compromised with women. And as a result, they went from being almost perfectly right to being feminists and, completely lost. Now, with Karinga, it needs to be made clear that there needs to be a cap for the money of capitalism. Okay? There should be a maximum amount of money. Everything else gets donated to charity, or donated back to the system. And people who have money in offshore accounts and stuff, this should, result in life sentences without the possibility of parole. Hoarding money should be considered just as much of a crime as murder, because people do commit suicide for it. People do, starve to death, and so on and so forth. So, if we're going to have high punishments for crimes such as crack cocaine, which perhaps we should have high punishments for all drugs, prescription drugs, crack cocaine, and we should also and the reason why that is because they consider the damage it causes to society. Then we should also have high punishments for hoarding money, because it causes more damage on a larger scale than individuals possessing crack cocaine and the damage they could cause. So I'd say life sentence without the possibility of parole, you know. And in the cases where they go to great lengths to cover up their mistakes, they should face execution, you know, because this is probably should be considered one of the most serious crimes, is, you know, large-scale financial crimes that ruin millions, if not billions, of lives and affect billions of people. Where in the case of crack cocaine, it only affects drug users and poor people in the ghetto for the most part. But crimes that have to do with money hoarding affect the whole world in a much more direct fashion. I mean, you could make the argument that injustice for one is an injustice for all, but there's a difference. Okay, I'm sure I don't have to explain that. So anyway, so we talk about the micro-political struggles of women within the Panther Party and how it ultimately helped feed the downfall of the black community. Because women demanded this, they started destroying the black community. Now, in many wars, the communists were the good guys. Wars in Africa, you know, Che Guevara in South America and Cuba and so on. In many instances, the communists were the good guys. So this confused people, especially women, about what philosophies were superior. Typically, white people were pushing a superior philosophy in a much inferior manner. It was such an inferior manner in which they were pushing their philosophy that the inferior philosophy was being performed in a superior manner. And they're pointing out the hypocrisy and the oppression in the white people's version of capitalism, this crony capitalism, which did not cap the money off, which did not apply a certain degree of socialism correctly. And as a result, you know, you had a lot of disenfranchised people turning toward communism and Marxist feminism, which is ultimately contributing to the downfall of society. Now, feminists should include only 3 people, okay? Only 3 groups of people. Everyone else is a moron when they become a feminist, including fat women, hookers, and strippers, but we'll get into that in a second. One is Satanists. It's their religion to break down society, to break down the family, to attack established religions and established conceptions of morality. 2, lesbians. They don't like anything that's, you know, heterosexual notions of, you know, and you know, nature and so on and so forth. 3, secret societies, because they have a satanic agenda. Those are the only 3 groups of people who should be feminists, you know, based on what they see, what they believe. Of course, they shouldn't believe what they believe, but that's a story for another day. Okay, so now let's get to the, you know, let's get to the heart of the matter, shall we? So why is feminism wrong? Okay, well, first of all, nature shows us that women are supposed to nurture their children. That for months, was it 9 months or something, they carry a child in their body. You know, I mean, women are so ignorant to this in general. Does God have to make it so that, you know, the umbilical cord cannot be cut off until children are 18? I mean, what did God have to do to make it more clear? We see it in nature. We see it in zebras and monkeys and apes and so on. We see this kind of, they're working together as a group. We see, you know, in birds, you know, nesting, you know, making a home, caring for the children, helping raise them. We see this in nature. And we know that in human society, it's not enough to be there to breastfeed your child and then give it up to the government. These children, especially when they're in their early teens, as they're developing their brains, as they're finding themselves, they need strong family support to develop the appropriate ethics, principles, and values, or their morality will most likely be lost forever. And we see this in the communities. You know, feminism has not worked in the black community especially. It creates a bitch who's impossible to live with, which gives a guy who already is disenfranchised and because of financial reasons doesn't want to have his child or doesn't want to take care of a child as it is. So when you create a bitch who's impossible to live with and you destroy romance and morality, now he doesn't have a moral reason to stay with her. Now he doesn't have a romantic reason to stay with her. She's a bitch. Her friends are influencing her to be a bigger bitch. And he's like, you know what? I'm out of here. And he's not entirely wrong to do so. So if men are to take care of their responsibilities, because I'm not saying they're perfect in this, they are victims, but they are also perpetrators and contributors who are perpetuating the cycle of the broken family by not taking the responsibility. Women need to choose. The main problem here is women, though, and you'll see that in a moment. You see, women need to choose a good man. Women's judgment specifically is the problem here. They need to choose a good man who's going to be there for them, who's going to love them, and they need to love that man, and they need to stick with him. They need to fulfill their role and to raise children. And they say, well, I want an important job. There's no job that is more important than raising your child. Nothing. Anyway, like I was saying, so then, they feel like they're being shunned or something, that, they're being pushed to the side. They're given the most important job of all, and they're pushed to the side. And they think that the grass is greener on the other side. The man goes to work, puts up with a bunch of shit, comes back, and he looks at the situation. What did you do? He talks to his son at the dinner table. What did you do? The wife says, well, he did this today, and he was acting this way, and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, is that true, son? And he puts his foot down, and he helps raise the child as well. This is a functional family. This is a child who's properly developing into a man, not a state-controlled ninny. And the state pushes homosexuality and sexual promiscuity and being a slut, and they push all these horrible principles onto people. The state should not raise your children. The state historically is oppressive, racist, greedy, out of touch, catering to a bunch of rich people who are pedophiles and who are sexually immoral. So if the state has their way, all the mothers are going to be sleeping with a bunch of rich people. All the children are going to be victims of state control, of state workers, government workers who are pedophiles. We see it in the Boy Scouts. We see it in the fucking orphanages and in, adoption services. We see it in the church even. When you give up your child to be reared by someone else, we see pedophilia go rampant. Learn from history, people. Feminism has failed. The government raising children has failed. Look at fucking the orphanages. Look at these these adopted children, these orphans. These foster care children. That's the phrase I'm looking for. 1 in 3 of them are on psychiatric medications, and it's not hereditary. It's fucking a result of the environment. These institutions have failed to raise children. Feminism has failed. The only thing that has ever worked and produced righteous people is a strong family structure. Where did Martin Luther King come from? A strong family structure. Where did Malcolm X come from? A strong family structure. And what were they pushing? Religions and philosophies that promote a strong family structure. So for women to say, that's not good enough for me, I'm a selfish whore, they may as well be saying that. They're saying, me, to hell with society. And that's because a bunch of Satanists who are greedy want everyone else to be greedy so people don't look at them with disgust. Instead they say, well, I wish I was that greedy piece of shit. We're all greedy and evil, and I wish I was these super rich, greedy and evil people. And so everything falls in place like they want it to, instead of people looking at them with disgust and reading. I don't have time to read this. I wanted to read it bad. I'll put it in the comments. It's Isaiah. I believe this is Isaiah. Is it Isaiah 7 or Isaiah 8? Isaiah 8. I encourage you all to read Isaiah 8. Yes. I'm out of time now, though. So, I'll finish off what I want to say in the comments. But you know, don't let the political struggle, don't let communists, revolutionaries confuse you about which philosophy is correct.